it's very easy to promise everything when it's not tied to reality or fiscal reality. You had like modern monetary theory that was basically like spend it, and at some point something magical will happen and the books will just balance themselves. Didn't pan out. Huge amounts of public debt, and let's just be honest here. That debt isn't something that's just hidden in Ottawa per se. That is your debt. You will wear that. More importantly, your kids will wear that. So there is nothing compassionate about continuing to saddle our children with increasing amounts of debt, which means that more and more of their tax dollars will go to that. Their taxes will likely have to increase in the future to just to pay that, or public services continue to decrease as more and more of the fiscal or the federal budget gets taken in terms of paying that debt, right? So living standards reduce, your dollar becomes less and less powerful. You're basically your purchasing power of what you can buy, it becomes less and less. So unfortunately, conservatives are often put in that position of, I don't know what, taking away the credit card and whatever, and tightening things up.
A lot of our cultures almost come down into a very me versus you mentality, and it seems to be hyper propelled over the last few years too. Because at the end of the day, what a lot of people want is the same thing. They want the country to do well. We want things to be equal opportunities for everybody. We want to all have the chance. We want to all have the chance to prosper. We want to all have the chance to make a name for ourselves, and not have, for me, not have anything handed to you unless you absolutely need it, right? And I find a lot of kind of the issues politically that we're dealing with are like internal wedges put between people that actually probably shouldn't even have internal wedges. All right, guys, this is going to be a really fun podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by James Robertson and his wife, Alessia. And for those who don't know, this is James's second time on the podcast. And the very first time him and I spoke, it was actually because his wife recommended that he should come on and be part of this podcast. And him and I had an amazing conversation, kind of getting into his political aspirations of running for the federal riding for Saint John Kennebacasis on the Conservative side.
Yeah, to become the Conservative candidate. So right now it's a nomination battle, and it's to seek the spot to become the federal Conservative candidate for a riding for eventually, when there is a federal election, to go against whoever's on the other side, whether Green, NDP, Liberal. This seat or the riding is held by Mr. Wayne Long.
Yes, thank you.
And he has indicated that I think he's going to hang them up and retire here shortly. He's had quite the political career. And after that many years, I think, you get a little tired and you deserve a little bit of time with family and friends. And you can see that from his feed that he's looking forward to that. So it leaves things a little bit open. And the confusion between provincial and federal is very real. I had some friends while the provincial election was happening saying, where's your signs? I don't see your face anywhere in this. And I was like,
that's what I wanted to clarify, right?
Like, because man, come on, no, please, it's federal,
right? Yeah. So let's just dive into that for a quick second, because I know that we just came out of the provincial election for the provincial riding. Now, how does that differ for people wondering? Because I know that I'm even a little bit foggy on this sometimes. How does that differ between provincial and federal, which is what you're running for?
Well, first off, when people are facing problems and challenges, whether it's garbage pickup, clean streets, gun rights, the bill at the pump, they don't really care what level of government you are. They're going to give you a full list of grievances and actions and all that. They just want something to happen. So you have to get ready for that when you do jump into politics. You'll be like, no, this is just the arena I'm playing in. And they're like, don't care. garbage pickup sucks. What are you going to do about it? Type thing. Potholes in the road. Potholes in the road always come up.
Right.
That's a big one. Fortunately, taxes and how much gas costs. That is a federal. That is a big part of federal now with the carbon tax. So you can speak on that difference between provincial and federal. Federal, you're dealing with obviously the bigger thing, the Canada as a whole, international trade, military. Provincial, one of the big things provincially that you will deal with is healthcare. Yes. So that's kind of like, there's a bunch of other areas, and I don't want to bore people with it, but one of the big ones, that kind of separation there is provincial will have that responsibility of healthcare. There's still federal transfers towards healthcare, but provincially their responsibility is healthcare, because healthcare is a big issue. It does come up. And then federal, you're dealing with like our standing and globally, foreign trade, foreign policy, national security. There is definitely elements that affect everyone, but yeah, I'll leave it there. I don't want to get into it deeper because I'm just going to bore people.
No, absolutely. Just so that people are aware, there's obviously a difference between the federal and then the provincial, and they both have different scopes of kind of what they manage and what they're responsible for. So that's what I just wanted to touch on there. But I just wanted to kind of clarify that, because a lot of our audience here is from New Brunswick and from Saint John. So I just wanted to clarify that issue. And then now for the main event of what's going on today is bringing Alessia on, who is James's wife. And what better way to get to know James and who he is as a person than to bring his wife on and have an in-depth conversation on some questions that she actually wants answers for here publicly on the record. So that's going to be super exciting that we get to all actually experience this together. And I guess before we even go into those questions that you have, Alessia, let's start on who are you and how did you meet James?
Okay, well, thank you for having me here, Brendan. Honey, you don't need to be nervous. It's just like us at night talking about stuff.
Sure.
But this time is on record.
Full disclosure, I told Brendan I'm nervous about this. I'd much rather talk wonkish policy stuff and everything. But yeah, here we go.
Right. I think people don't just vote for the policy, they vote for the person. So I'm hoping that today is about getting to know James as a husband, as a father, and as the wonderful person that I know. But yeah, about me. So I'm from Italy, from Sardinia, actually, from an island.
Okay.
I was born and raised there, and then I moved to the United States, where I studied university, and I worked in the US, actually in Texas, for a few years.
Okay.
Then moved to Canada. I became a citizen of this amazing country that we love so much. And then I was fortunate to meet James 10 years ago. And, what would you say?
Time's going by fast.
Yeah, 10 years. I won what do they call it? Love jackpot? Something like that. Anyway, I think I won that.
The love lottery.
The love lottery. That's what that was. Yeah,
I just made that up. I'm not sure if that's what it is.
I like it. Love lottery.
I'd go for that.
Yeah. It's priceless, the ticket. James and I met 10 years ago, and we live in Quispamsis. We have 2 little kids, and we're just a family, just probably like most of the families, in New Brunswick. We both work full time. Mm-hmm. So it's a busy life. I also travel for work.
Yes.
We have a pretty busy life, and it's challenging, especially in this economy. It's also exciting.
Excellent. And so what do you feel for James's political aspirations? What are your thoughts on the large feat that James is going for here? And tell us your thoughts.
This too. Let's hear this.
Tell us your thoughts.
First of all, when James told me his intentions, I was not surprised. I remember even dating James and having to talk about, world policy and et cetera. So, this is very much who James is. James didn't just turn it on. James is James, and he's very much a public servant and is interested in helping the country and helping us be better. So I wasn't surprised. Now, how I feel about it from a personal level, that's different. We have 2 kids, we have 2 jobs. And actually in our household, the workload is split 50-50. So what it means is that if James gets in and ends up going to Ottawa most of the weeks, I will be basically doing everything on my own while still keeping my job. So, of course, that's challenging. You know, the idea of not having James at home is challenging. One, because of the amount of work that running a family and a household requires. Two, because we will miss him. You know, we do a lot of things together as a family. We're very close, as most families are. We like spending. I hope that people like spending time together. We do, and so yeah. I mean, it's challenging. So my preference when we first talked about it was, I'd rather you not do this. And then I look at James and I love him, and that needs to trump everything else. His happiness. One, making sure that he's fulfilled in what he's doing, and then two, who am I to prevent him from doing something that's going to be amazing for the country? You know, if he gets in, I think he's going to be a huge contributor in Ottawa, and that needs to come before my own personal feelings, the needs of our family. And I think that's also what relationships are about. It's a compromise, and I think it's a compromise that we need to make as a family in order to do what's right for James and for the country.
Absolutely. Absolutely, that's very intense.
I mean, there's elements of give and take in any relationship, and Alessia, it's wonderful that she's talking about me, but she's a very talented woman, and there's been a number of times that I've had to support her career because she really is successful in what she does, but we work together, we work it out. We still eat at the kitchen table with the kids. You know.
Yeah, we're old school.
Yeah, we you know, that's the Italian side maybe within us, but you know, come 9:30, 10 o'clock at night when the laundry's finally folded and the
kitchen is clean.
Kitchen is clean. We can look at each other and share a little, you know, loving moments and all that, and a high five that somehow we've made it through another day. And I'm sure every parent there is nodding and knows exactly what we're talking about. But
just to add perspective for the parents, how old are the kids?
6. Our son is 6 and our daughter is 8.
Right. So
yeah.
So busy. So I mean,
it's getting easier, but it's also getting harder because now they're doing extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
Right.
So the weekends are starting to fill up in terms of ballet, hockey, gymnastics.
Yes.
I don't think it's going to get any easier. They're
Homework.
Oh yeah, the homework. Oh my goodness.
Homework. Are they in French immersion at all?
Yes, they are.
That makes it even harder. Do you guys speak French?
Un peu.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So actually, James is modest. His French is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Mine is a bit rusty, but you know, I can get by.
The reason I asked that is I was in French immersion, and it was difficult doing homework with my parents.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I remember
same. Yeah.
Right. And I remember just a couple things like "mal parler gross," and he's like, "Why are you saying I'm gross?" I'm like, "No, big." Like when you're like 5, that's the extent to my French, right? So
no, we can help the kids. James was in late French immersion. I just learned French just like I learned Spanish and other languages because I love languages.
Right. So you know Spanish then?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's pretty close.
Well,
to
and
French.
Italian gets spoken quite a bit in our household.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm the one that
languages.
drags that down though. My Italian is not great. Needs to get better.
This was part of the deal. Let's make sure this is on record. He can run, but there's a commitment that he's going to learn Italian.
Yeah.
So that's the commitment.
Okay. So that's the thing. So it's yeah. So then, in order for this to happen, you need to learn Italian to the fullest extent.
Yeah, I think that's a well. Yeah,
that's a win-win.
Well, it's challenging too as I try to get my French back up to snuff. Is a lot of times I'm now mixing in Italian and getting my words mixed up, and the same time when I'm trying to do Italian, French will go in there. But Alessia, so the kids speak Italian, but nice, I think my son is a little bit behind in his Italian, probably because he looks up to me in some regards with that, and he sees that Papa is not Italiano. So it's I need to up my game there, both as a husband
if you
and
make
as a
it to
father.
Ottawa, you'll have so many nights in that hotel room. Just Duolingo.
Oh my goodness!
So then, so did you want to go into some of the questions that you had, Alessia, for James, which you kind of diving into who he is as an individual, and even kind of like at the house level, right? Like you said, people, they vote on policy, but they also want to know who's behind the policy, who is the person. And I think the beautiful thing about us doing this is a lot of times you don't get to figure out who somebody is as a political figure. You only see their signs, you see a little bit of what they're voting for, and if you're lucky, you may get out in the street and talk to them once or twice, but you don't actually get to figure out who these people are. And that's a beautiful thing about doing these long form videos and podcasts, is you get to actually see people's mannerisms. And I think that's what's so enticing about these long forms. So I'm super excited for you to kind of dive into some of the questions that you had for James.
Yeah, and like you said, I think it's important to get to know James as a person. I always say, James, you come across as very well spoken, of course, smart and serious. So my job as a wife is to lighten him up and make sure that we also make fun of ourselves and have some fun while dealing with all the challenges. So James has a fun side. I hope that comes up. Well, the first question is probably not fun, but I think it's an important one. It's about balancing all the responsibilities. So the kids, our jobs, a campaign to run.
Balance? What is that?
You can tell me what you think that is. And in addition to, the family, the jobs, the campaign, also his wellness, I know wellness is important for him.
Right.
And it's mental and it's physical. So there's all these competing priorities. How do you plan to balance all of those things in the upcoming months? Because the elections can be called next month, or it could be called 6 months from now.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's been kind of falling a little bit by the wayside, and I will say that because I feel pressure beside Mr. Fitness right to the right of me here, who sets a great example, I think, in our community. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, James. Thank you.
And when it comes across your Instagram feed, the things that you do, I'm like, oh, right. Got to go knock off some push-ups here. And
now you're being humble because this is coming from a ex special forces.
Yeah.
So you're being extremely humble in this moment, and I appreciate that.
I think, well, I mean, you're probably similar to when we talk about balance. I think probably one of the elements that's foundational, and Alessia will notice this from me as well when I start getting to becoming a Debbie Downer or a grumpy Gus, there is because I haven't done some workouts in a while. And it just starts from there. I start losing my physical routine, and my physical routine since I've joined this nomination has suffered. Like, there is no doubt it has suffered. And so I'm struggling a bit there. And then, of course, once your physical fitness starts to suffer, for me, what happens is the unhealthy food starts to follow there. So big thing for me for balance will be ensuring that some form of physical activity occurs, because it generally, if I get that workout done, I get that run done, that's the foundational element that just brings a better James there, right? It makes me a better husband, a better father. So there'll be that, but I'm sure my waistline is going to struggle through the balance. I'm lucky that I have someone that keeps me in check too. So when there is something going on, Alessia is pretty quick to call it out in terms of, she knows when I'm
Well,
my inward battles there.
Let's make sure everyone understands. I don't call out the waistline.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it sounds like I would never do that.
No.
It's more about your need to move and yeah.
Yeah, the need to move.
I call you out when you're grumpy, for sure.
Yeah. And there's times there where she's like, have you been doing your calls? Have you done that? And
even on the campaign.
Yeah, on the campaign, which is good. She's pushing me, but then I've had to push back a couple times. One of my Zen things is getting into the garden. If I could spend my time just landscaping, gardening.
Literally, garden.
I'm
warrior in the garden.
I'm huge.
Rather than a gardener in the war.
I'm a huge... I'm huge into that, getting my hands dirty, and there's been a couple times where I've said, like, sweetheart, I need to get outside.
Yeah.
And she'll she's like, all right, go do your thing, and that will help. So yeah.
Well, I love that you're talking about the physical fitness side of it, because it's like that is a huge portion of keeping yourself in check and of keeping your best self too, right? Because if you're going to be doing a job of representing Saint John Kennebacasis for the federal position, then it's like that's a very mentally demanding requirement, and it's like you do need to keep all of that stuff in check to bring your best self for everybody, for yourself, family, and it's like it all literally starts with that physical kind of keeping your body in check and keeping the mind in check too. That's where it all starts, and I love that you're saying that, because it's like a lot of people will set that as a oh, that's not important right now, but it's like that's actually probably one. It's like once I get everything else sorted out, then I'll work on my fitness. Well, no, it's like you bring that back in, and then it makes everything else easier, right?
Yeah. And so I've been struggling a bit with that lately. But it's always good to have that kind of a little element of peer pressure, that kind of call, that reminder of getting back out there, getting physical, and that will help set balance. But balance is very difficult right now, and I've said sometimes you and I feel like we're two ships passing that, because we're just. It's go with the kids.
And sometimes we have to divide and conquer, which we like doing things together. Yep. But sometimes we have had to I take the kids, he does some campaign, and vice versa. I'm working, he's taking the kids, and sometimes we have to do that. I think Mario, our son, was actually campaigning and door knocking recently. I don't know if you saw him.
Yeah, we went out to Provincial stuff there. Yeah, it was.
He enjoyed himself, and I mean, they say that about kids, and boys with their fathers. Just going along with your dad and doing things with your dad is exciting, no matter what it is.
Right.
So that's one way we incorporate that into the life. Okay, my next question is about the conservatives. So when I talk to my friends and they ask me who James is running for, or when I share some of my political views, I get like mixed reactions, and sometimes like stiff shoulders, look away type of reaction. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. Let's talk about it. Yeah. And it's, I don't actually know why conservatives have developed some bad reputation. I grew up in a conservative family, and all that meant to me is you have to work hard. There are consequences for bad behavior. Mm-hmm. And there's rules like that. To me, that's what being conservative meant like when we were growing up as kids. And I think nowadays it's taken this whole spin of, the evil conservatives. And I don't actually know. I mean, maybe it's the U.S. politics that is influencing us a bit.
I suspect there's a bit of that.
And I want to acknowledge that there are some bad characters within the Conservative Party, in the same way that there's bad characters on the left side. And I personally don't like either extreme. Either extreme is not great, especially when you're running a country that's so diverse. You want to make sure that you're representing the majority of the people that are voting for you. So having said all that, James, why do you think that conservatives have such a bad rap? I don't get it.
Wow. Yeah.
In simple words.
Yeah, you gonna arrest me on this? Help me out of this one?
Don't go too deep. Don't go too deep.
Okay.
It's just in simple words. What is it?
And then this is coming from almost the perspective of people that might be non-conservative, right? A lot of non-conservatives have that bad rap. And I think, for me, it's like, I feel like there's just perspective, right? Because there's a lot of people who love the conservative side. But then for the folks that are not able to get behind the vision, I guess, what would you say to them? Like, what are they missing?
Well, I mean, there's probably that element of American politics that Alessia is mentioning, but I'm going to focus a little bit more on Canada, even though that does impact Canada. And to dismiss that would be ridiculous, because a lot of times when you do talk politics in Canada, most of the time people don't talk about Canadian politics. They talk U.S. politics. When you're talking around the dinner table or at the water tower, it's U.S. politics. So that definitely impacts us there. So there's a couple things. One, I think there's generally a kind of a left biased, liberal bias within Canada as a country and within media that somewhat demonizes conservatives. But the conservatives have always been put in a difficult position, in the position of when you're looking for fiscal management in terms of balancing budgets, living within your means as a country. A lot of times that comes with potentially a cutting of services, reducing public bureaucracy. And with that, a lot of people will tar that or put that into a realm of that is... I'm trying to find the word here, but just not compassionate, right? It is very easy to be on the left side of the ledger, and I'm also even just struggling with left and right, because I think the political dynamics now are just all over the map. But we'll just put it down to simple terms here. Left side of the ledger. It's very easy to promise everything when it's not tied to reality or fiscal reality. You had modern monetary theory that was basically like spend it, and at some point something magical will happen and the books will just balance themselves. Didn't pan out. Huge amounts of public debt, and let's just be honest here. That debt isn't something that's just hidden in Ottawa per se. That is your debt. You will wear that. More importantly, your kids will wear that. So there is nothing compassionate about continuing to saddle our children with increasing amounts of debt, which means that more and more of their tax dollars will go to that. Their taxes will likely have to increase in the future to pay that, or public services continue to decrease as more and more of the fiscal or the federal budget gets taken in terms of paying that debt, right? So living standards reduce, your dollar becomes less and less powerful. Your purchasing power of what you can buy, it becomes less and less. So unfortunately, conservatives are often put in that position of, I don't know taking away the credit card and whatever, and tightening things up. And I think that's where they get marred. And just naturally, conservatives are conservative. They're a little bit slower to change. They're a little bit more cautious to change. Not all change is necessarily good. And so they're a little bit slow on that. And a lot of times too, they're very, you don't see a lot of conservatives out on the streets protesting or taking. They're conservative. Most people I know that are conservative aren't. They go to work. They don't get out. They don't push against the narrative. And a lot of times they're like, I'm going to keep my my head underneath the radar or whatnot, and just tend to my own house and just kind of stay away from that craziness of whatever might be going on there until it really starts to impact. And then you'll start to get a reaction. But they don't like to be as public as I'd say progressive or liberals.
So that's a really good point. And I think sometimes when I think of the bad rap is because the other side is a lot more vocal. about those beliefs.
Yep.
So it isn't necessarily that the reality gets skewed, because you are constantly hearing the evil conservatives, the evil right is doing this, because those are some really loud voices.
Right.
When, I mean, us as conservatives, or all of my conservative friends, we embrace diversity, we embrace minorities, we embrace change. But we will call you out if something has gone too far and if something is not reasonable. Yet, as we do that, we immediately get put into that box of, bigots,
Right.
And so because of that, I think people, even conservatives, maybe have a hard time articulating what we believe in, because there's a certain fear that, you'll get canceled. And I mean, if you're a Christian, you're for sure getting canceled by a lot of people. So I think that's the elephant, which is...
And I loved what you said about there's nothing compassionate about pushing the debt onto our future kids too, right? Onto the next generations. And then even how you use the word compassionate, because it seems like what happens from a lot of on the left side is it's very emotional. A lot of the arguments are very emotional based. And then now when you're talking about the conservatives getting the bad rap for having to, let's say, dial back some policy, because that's the logical thing to do in order to balance the budget. It might not be the most friendly sounding way to solve the problem, but it's the most logical way to solve the problem. And it might not come across as the most friendly approach, because when you start hearing about cutting back on, let's say, a service, it's like, well, geez, you're not thinking about those people. But it's like we're trying to look at the entirety, the whole situation, and try to figure out a way that we can best move forward. And I think that can kind of make people feel like it's not warm. It's not, it's not warm to say we need to scale back. Hey, we need to start doing, but it's discipline. But it's having discipline, right? And then, like you said too, is you don't see many conservatives out kind of doing the protesting kind of things. It's almost because it's like, are they less emotional? Not less emotional, because it's not. It's just more kind of like, I don't know.
I think they're just focused on life. And
it's just maybe that. Maybe I don't like. I don't want to.
No, I don't want to
put anyone. It's just I just generally find sort of people are a little bit leery about getting out there, voicing their opinion. You'll and maybe that is because of the demonization. I don't know. I think
it is that.
Yeah, I had a former cabinet minister when I said that I was interested in becoming a conservative, and they looked at me like, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Are you ready? Are you ready to be like Team Blue and the labels that it comes with, and all that?" And you'll have
labels,
liberal NDP-ish folks that are much more vocal about who they follow, who they support in the workplace, and I'll find the exact opposite with conservatives, right? Oh, I'll support you, but I got to be very careful. I can't say that at work and all that. And I'm just like, that's not a great political environment for us to be in here. And and it's when you get beyond the demonization and you look or you ever get to know members of parliament for the conservative movement in Canada, they are very much regular people, right? It's unfortunate. It's kind of the paradigm we play in. We have to play that.
And I think it goes on either side too, right? It goes on either side because it's like, you could be with somebody who's running for the Liberal riding, and then it's like, why is the Conservative demonized, or sorry, you could it works on both sides, right? So, and I think a lot of it comes down to the perspective, and like once you kind of pick a side, we humans have like a very strong
there's a tribal
thing, right? So it's,
I think social media doesn't help that in terms, right?
It doesn't at all. No, it doesn't at all. And then it creates almost this like, this is my side, and a lot of people don't even know the scope of like what the side represents, but they pick a side, and then now they're very emotionally invested in that too, right? So
I think that's really problematic. That's probably something I'm really passionate about, which is this polarizing of the two sides.
Right.
Extremes are not good, but we all need to sit down. We do need to talk about the differences, and we do need to have those important conversations.
Right.
And you can't be with us or against us just because you're critiquing the way I'm going about something.
Right.
You know, like there are things that the left has done that are extremely important that have helped with a number of great causes. But if I question the way they've gone about it, I am immediately against them. That's probably why people don't speak about it.
Right.
And I also want to bring this back to parenting for any parents that are listening, which is this idea of almost, you can think about the more conservative type of parenting, how we were raised versus the new age parenting. Neither is good. You know, the way our parents were raised us in some way was not great, didn't help the children express their needs fully, etc. But the new age parenting, for me, that's gone too far, you know, and it's the same in politics. You talked about compassion. You talked about this idea of sort of giving and understanding. I'll give you an example. I didn't share this with you, James. I hope you agree. But so our daughter has asked to start doing chores. And I definitely have an issue with paying for chores. But I thought, you know, I think there's going to be a number of chores that you don't get paid for that you should be doing every day. Cleaning up your rooms, etc. So this is a basic standard of just being a member of this family and this household. But if you're going to do something above and beyond, and in this case for her was vacuuming the house, okay, you're going to get X. And so I said, okay, if you vacuum the whole main floor, you get $5. And it's a job, you know, she has to do the office, she has to do the mudroom, the main area. Well, she's 8. Is that realistic that she's going to do an amazing job? Probably not. But she needs to show me best effort. And sometimes best effort, by the way, is not enough. That's what being a conservative means to me. And so what she ended up doing was vacuuming and purposely skipped the whole area.
Oh, jeez.
Because it had rugs and it was more difficult.
Right.
And then came to me and asked me for $5. And I said, okay, I'm going to have to check the job.
Right.
So I went around and I gave her 3 and she was very upset. And she said, well, I did the best that I could. And I'm like, and I respect you for it. And that's why you're getting paid. But you can't be paid $5 because that's a job well done across the whole floor. So that, to me, sums up who we are. And are you okay with that? You can say you don't agree with it.
I will not cross an Italian mama.
Right.
I want you to
You know
tell me
what?
that.
I think that's a great lesson. I think it's a great lesson because you're now from a very young age setting the foundation of we're not just doing the best we can. We need to do. You can't just say you're doing the best you can and expect to get a full compensation. We need to do the best, and it's raising the standard. I mean, it's a very intense standard to have, but I think that's great.
I mean, and if I give her $5, and if I give her $5 for doing something that's not well done, the expectation for her is to go out in the world.
Yeah. Which one of you were in the military again?
Yeah.
Okay, so James, do you agree, or do you think I was too hard on Mina?
I'd say Mina's pretty smart, so she'll figure it out. And no, I think standards are good. That's the military.
He's not answering the question.
I'm being too political. There's only a certain part of the population that'll get what we're talking about there.
It's okay.
Now you got me all messed up. I'm going to start using my hands and this. No, don't want to go there. Yeah, I support you.
Okay.
Love
it's
you.
on record.
I
Okay.
love you.
All right. Well, let's move on. So the next question that I had was about AWMS. Angry.
Right.
What?
Angry White Man Syndrome.
Oh, my God.
AWMS, Angry White Man Syndrome. I'm a woman, so I definitely know and understand that not only it's taken us so long to get to where we are, but there are countries, 2 days, that don't allow women to vote, don't allow people to drive, don't allow people to work. So I'm extremely passionate about women's rights. Mm-hmm. But what it's a little bit concerning is that we've taken the white man and have put the blame on them for anything and everything. And, you know, it's that pendulum that's swinging, and it's swinging a bit too far, in my opinion. And I am concerned when I hear things like, well, you're a privileged white man, you don't get a seat at the table, or we don't need your opinion. We've heard centuries of your opinion. And you don't solve the problem without everyone's voice, including the white man. So it's an interesting topic, and it's especially interesting having a boy, because my son is going to go into the world, and I want to make sure that, he doesn't get put in the box as the evil white man. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that he's proud of being a white male. I want to make sure that he feels that he can express his opinion. And of course, I want him to fight for everyone's right. Men, women, minorities, everyone. Mm. But James, I have seen this with you. You have been put in a box.
Okay.
You have. I remember when I first met James, and some of my friends were like, this big white dude that just is coming off the military. It's like, what are you doing? Like, he seems scary. And James is far from scary. Like, he's one of the nicest people I've ever met. Mm. But you have been put in that box. You have been told that it's easier to be you because of who you are, the white male. And you've been told to step aside and to let others have the conversation. So I want to ask you, what does that feel to be that white man today?
Well, thanks for the softball question. Wow. Is this like where in politics you answer the question that you wish they asked, not the one that they actually asked, and go somewhere else?
Right.
Brandon, you're a white man too, so
right, yeah.
You get to answer that too after James.
Okay.
I guess, yeah, maybe there's some element of that. I mean, I can't help who I am. I'm a big, bald-headed guy. Yeah, I'm close to 270, and sometimes talk a little loud and kind of gregarious, extroverted. So yeah, you'll get some people saying, "Oh, you got to be a little bit softer and whatnot,"
especially for politics.
For politics, yes. I'd say you'd look at Parliament, though. There's still a heavy skew to a particular demographic, white, and I think 70% of the population is still there. But I think the bigger concern for me is not like, yeah, maybe that element is there, but I think there's a lot of men across many demographics, Asian, Persian, whatever you have it, that are facing some form of that. I also get a sense from my engagement in terms of the community, working with some of the young men through either sports or when that leadership group that I was involved in is, and as well as phone calls I've been doing, is a lot of young men are checking out. And we've seen that as well with our neighbors. At some point too, the young men are struggling. And I've also kind of gotten this thing with the phone calls, Nat, is where I really get an element of cynicism and just, I don't know if it's nihilism, cynicism, is from the younger guys. They're really checking out. And that concerns me because I think the politics, even though there's a lot of men involved in politics, I think the politics is starting to skew a little bit more to the feminine. As you'll always hear about this joke, mystical creature. It's the soccer moms. You got to get the soccer moms. Everything's got to be driven for politics towards the soccer moms. Men, the challenge I have is that as a lot of these guys, young guys are checking out, increasingly checking out, politics will continue to leave them further and further behind, and they'll just become more cynical. I think one gentleman, and I think he's center left, American tech guy, Scott Galloway, media personality, great guy. Occasionally check him out on YouTube or his podcast. And when I follow him, he speaks on this, right? And he says we're failing our young men they're falling behind, both in education, employment. They're falling way behind, and we're seeing that through like fertility rates, to job success, to higher education enrollment. It's plummeting for young men. And unfortunately, what I think you're seeing is a political expression starting to come through I would say, I keep saying the word cynical, but there is that cynical thing. And there will be, unfortunately, this tension between the feminine and the masculine, between men and women, that is just ugly. I don't like it. And it is starting to build within our politics. I think you see it quite a bit in U.S. politics, right? We have age-based splits and demographics or generational demographics starting to really articulate or show themselves in our politics. But we're also, I think, more and more might be seeing a masculine, feminine, men, women type of dynamic playing out in our politics, and that's not good, right? And how do we get? My call out to this would be, I would really like it for men, young men especially, to check in more into politics. Get more involved, be courageous, make some mistakes, whatnot, but get in there.
I just want to clarify something, because for any woman that's listening to this hearing, we need more young men involved in politics. They're going to say, well, look at the parliament. There is a bunch of old white men, and there are a lot more than women. So I think what you're trying to say is, yes, so currently the older generation is mostly male, or the majority is male occupying those seats. But what is actually happening is women are getting more and more involved, and men are stepping back, and in some cases they're checking out.
Yes.
So unless we keep the younger men engaged, we're going to see the things are going to be off balance the other way in probably a decade or two. So what you're saying is you're seeing the signs now of the young generation of men that maybe are not being involved, or are like taking a back seat. Is that what you're trying to say, James?
Yeah.
And so just what I'm noticing from even the last kind of two questions that we've been talking about here is it's a very me versus you culture that we're in right now, right? So then you talked about what's the problem with the kind of negative overlooming perspective of the conservatives. And it's like, now what's the problem with like men versus women, angry white man versus, it's very me versus you, right? A lot of our cultures almost come down into a very me versus you mentality. And it seems to be hyper propelled over the last few years too. Because at the end of the day, what a lot of people want is the same thing. They want the country to do well. Yep. It's like, who cares who's going to be the one to take us there? We want things to be equal opportunities for everybody. We want to all have the chance. We want to all have the chance to prosper. We want to all have the chance to make a name for ourselves, and not have anything handed to you unless you absolutely need it, right? You always have those situations where people are going to need certain aids from the government and stuff like that. But overall, I think people just want things to be collective, and it's like everybody wants to move forward together. But then I think a lot of what we're talking about is like the me versus you mentality that is in culture. And you said it earlier, it's the social media that really seems to hyper project that, because I think that's where the angry old white man kind of statement comes from, or the angry white man syndrome. But then it's like that's just putting people into a bucket and saying they're now the enemy. And it's like, everybody should, in my opinion, should just be judged on an individual basis, regardless of culture.
And regardless of gender.
Regardless of gender, regardless of culture, who's a good person, who's most qualified for the position. And that might be a controversial statement there, but I think that's the way that things need to be looked at. And every industry has kind of different demographics where there's majority women in a industry, let's say like nursing, for example, as opposed to like concrete workers, which is like mostly men kind of deal. But it's like, let's say there's a woman who's like the most qualified to do the concrete job, like put her there. Like whoever's qualified, put the person there, right?
Yep.
And it's like that's what people should be based on. And I find a lot of kind of the issues politically that we're dealing with are the divisive, are like internal wedges put between people that actually probably shouldn't even have internal wedges.
Sorry.
I just want to say, Brandon just hit the nail in the head when he said it should not be about the gender, it should be about the person that is right for the job.
Yep.
That applies to many things. I mean, in my career, whenever I hear things like we need a woman to be in this board or a woman to do this, I'm stepping away. I get things I earn, obviously. Right. I want to work hard and I want to be put in a place because I deserve it and because of my work, not because I'm a woman. That's actually offensive. Being a woman and being told we need more women to do this. We need the right person to do this in the same way that we need a right person to go into politics. And just appreciate you pointing that out, Brendan, because that's really what it is. 100%. It's about the right person, not the gender.
No, 100%. And that's what it always should be. And it should be not based on cultural appearances or your skin color or your age, right? And like it's like who's the most qualified, and I think that gets left out of the conversation. It's almost like a lot of this stuff we get so caught up with the cultural pushes through social media of the divisiveness, right? Yeah. And it's like, but the problem is that's the stuff that gets the views. That's the stuff that gets the most engagement because it gets people fired up. When somebody unless you're saying something that's so monumental that everybody's like, yes, I agree with that. Yeah. That gets a lot of views. That's hard to please. You're never going to please everybody. No.
But it's
easy to enrage. It's easy to enrage.
How many of the people have seen what the other person is watching?
Right.
Because now through algorithms and whatnot, everyone starts going down their own rabbit holes.
Right.
And the I'll say the machine or whatnot.
The algorithm
feeds people the certain information. So you get deeper and deeper into your own bias.
Yes.
Right?
And the algorithm knows, you're interacting positively or negatively. They actually don't care. Like if you're spewing hate, they're going to show you more stuff that you're commenting on.
That's going to validate your beliefs.
That's going to validate your beliefs. That also is just going to have a chance for you to watch and get angry. And if you act on it, then the algorithm's going to show you more of what that is, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of different problems, but I think like when you get everybody into a room, most times, most people,
most times,
you are able to come and say like, we just want things to, be, it's like everybody wants to be able to move forward together. Like, let's make sure it's good for the kids. Like, I don't think either side is saying we want to leave our kids with a bunch of debt and cripple them for the way the country's going to be in 50 years. That's what we wanted. Nobody's saying that. Yeah. Everybody wants it to be good, but it's just the narrative that seems to be pushed because it's good for the algorithms, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, so the question about the young man checking out, and I think that's probably also young women. I think that there's a lot of people checking out. There's a lot of people checking out from politics because it has become so toxic, or maybe, I actually don't know why, James, but even people that know you and they like you and they say, I want to support you, and you say, awesome, all you need to do is fill out this little form and support me. Become a member so you can vote for me. Like, they don't do it. You need to follow up 10 times. And this isn't personal about James. This is just a common behavior. Voter turnout is super low in most of the country, I believe. Probably the lowest it's ever been. And the problems are probably the worst we've ever had, at least in the last, 50 years. So
it's pretty significant.
Yep.
Why is that? Why aren't people getting involved?
Exhaustion, I'd say, is your first issue in there. Is we're most of us, and if they admit it or not, most of us are online, and we go back to the social media and everything's political. At least there's so much politics now. You're getting it fed constantly. So people are tired. People are exhausted. Again, American politics. A lot of people are highly engaged in that. you can't avoid it. So they're watching that. That tires them out. The social media.
So
aspect.
they don't vote? Is that why?
I mean, you could look at that in different ways. I mean, sometimes a low voter turnout means that things are actually kind of going well and government's boring. And remember in Afghanistan, I was upset. We had a federal election. The turnout wasn't great. And I was all in a harumph about it. And one of my troops said, well, actually, sir, that's like, that indicates that things are pretty good because, things are boring. Everything's kind of good. No one really has a reason to vote or whatnot. I think sometimes you'll see a higher rate of voting when things aren't so great, right?
You said that last time we were talking. Good politics is boring politics.
Good politics is boring politics. And unfortunately, if a conservative government is doing well, it's really boring because they're pulling back. I think... the opposition leader, Monsieur Pierre Poilievre, he'll talk about I want less government. I want to be less involved in people's lives, right? That's like one of his goals, right? And if he achieves his success, and he might even have said it, I don't know. It'll probably be like people are it's boring, right? He wants to make government less exciting or boring. So that's one thing, but I think a lot of people don't feel represented from their political representative. It might be another.
Disappointed.
Disappointed. I think a lot of people don't identify much with politicians anymore, and they're not involved. I know, a lot of the parties have a real challenge getting younger people out and involved. The demographic is old. Unfortunately, as our population ages and we have less and less younger people, politics will continue to probably focus more and more on supporting an older generation than a younger generation. So you might even get a bigger checkout. I don't know. It's a potential there, and it's unfortunate. It is. I would love it to get younger people more politically engaged and involved, but it is a challenge. It really is a challenge right now.
And it's got to be a maturity thing too, because I even remember, I think the first time I was able to go out and vote, I just voted for the sake of being able to vote. I was like, I'm allowed to leave work and go vote, so I'm going to do my civil duty and go. That was exciting for me. But then I think there was a couple of years where I probably didn't, and I think it was an immaturity in me because I didn't see the value in it. I didn't actually understand. I wasn't tuned in enough to feel that, or even just hearing your vote is going to make a difference too, right? Like every vote counts, and that's the whole purpose of living in a democracy, is that we all get a chance to throw our opinion and our decisions in to where the government's going.
Yeah. I would just say this. I think as I've sensed, and I've had that told by a number of people there as people check out of politics, the people that do check in or get involved will have more and more sway. And if you do want to change something, if you are passionate about issues within your country, my call for you is to get involved. My call for other people, for the grown-ups in the room, is make it fun.
Yeah.
Make it fun. It doesn't have to be serious all the time. Have the barbecues, have the get-togethers. I've heard this from volunteers and all that. It used to be fun. It's not that fun anymore. Make it fun. Get people out there. But I think this is. I don't even think this is just politics. I think this is within a lot of community groups and all that. I think they are challenged in terms of attracting a higher rate of participation. I think a lot of our community groups and whatnot have declined somewhat. And again, a younger generation, I think the rates in terms of loneliness has gone up. The rates of anxiety have gone up. Again, probably due to social media.
Yeah. And that divisiveness.
One of the great ways of overcoming that is get involved. get out there with the community group. Go, help clean up garbage on a street with some group. Go knock on some doors with political group. There's numerous things, but it also helps build empathy and helps us get out of our political tribes or our issue tribes where we become so focused on one thing and we go deeper into this kind of everything's politics. And with so much of politics, everything becomes a zero-sum game. Everyone's trying to put down everyone else. Not great.
Yeah. What's the quote? An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind.
Ooh. Good one. Okay, so the next question is going to be hard.
Ooh.
I gave you the heads up, but I know you didn't prepare for it because you don't love talking about it.
No.
I think it's really important for people to get to know you as a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And you're very passionate about this topic. And when I met you, you had you were just leaving the Navy. And I don't know, Brandon, if you shared that last time, but James wasn't only in the Navy, but as you mentioned, he had to go through a rigorous selection process to be part of the Special Forces. And he led a Special Forces team in Afghanistan. And so that took many years out of his life. A lot of dedication and time and heart went into that. And when I met him, he was getting out, and it was an incredible process for me to watch. One, because you think of these men coming home as heroes, and you picture maybe the red carpet laid out and all these things given to them. You keep hearing about all the support that's there for veterans. Well, sure, like I've seen some support, but I was shocked by the lack of assistance that, veterans do get, especially here in Canada. And it's not just, your health benefits. Of course, they're going to fix your body if something's wrong with it. But it's like, how do we help them get readjusted into civilian life, getting a job? It really isn't like living one job and getting another. It's living a life and starting a new one. And I've experienced that. And I've also seen James go through PTSD. And I'd like him to talk about that. I think it's important because it ties into his mission. And I want to give a shout out to Patrick from Operations Feed, because I think he's, again, one of those people that's been able to bring veterans together. And James has made some great connections with this group here. But it's taken James time coming out of that to even identify himself as a veteran, or to even acknowledge that he had to deal with some of that trauma. And I think for James, it was coming out saying, no, I'm good. Dust my shoulders and I'm good. I'm good. I don't need anything. And then it catches up on you. So with you. So anyway, I want you to just, if you can, share what you're comfortable with about the personal journey of getting out, because that probably would help a lot of people understand what it's like, and a lot of veterans like you.
Yeah, I didn't fully prepare for this one. That's for sure. You shared that you were going to ask me this. You asked me, and I definitely thought I was fine. And then, given time, and I think it was just dealing with the stress and the chaos of transitioning out. Probably didn't have a lot of time with my thoughts. Go. And then at some point you do have time with your thoughts. Things bubble up and they can shake you to your very core. And fortunately for me, elements of faith and love and friendship helped me through a tough time. Alessia was very, very important, instrumental for me. Your love. I was very lucky on that. Front. Where I think sometimes some veterans, don't have that. one of the things that's, I guess, hard is you alluded to it, is when you leave the military, and the military was very much a key identifier for me. It's not a job. It is a life, right? You live that job. It is your identifier. You're so caught up to it. Your friend circle is around that. There is this element that is you're living to a cause that's higher than yourself. And then coming into corporate world, that doesn't necessarily exist.
Yeah.
And so and Alessia again had to experience or see that with me, with these moments of awakening, of coming out into the professional world. And I don't know if I want to call it soulless, but there was just this element that was not there, right? Like I'm used to, like my friend circle was like the military, the sense of meaning higher and all that. And then sometimes it really...
In the civilian world, your coworkers aren't willing to give up their lives for you. That's for one.
Yep.
And you knew that you could count your life on your coworkers in the military. So that's huge.
Yeah.
And that was a huge support system, your friendship. They were your family. And in the corporate world, it's pretty cutthroat. Like, I mean, not in every reality, but in most realities, your coworkers you should be watching out, because sometimes they are not very nice to you.
Yeah, I would say corporate wise, there is no one corporate wise that I would say, I love you. And there are certain guys that I serve with that I have no problem saying, love you, man. Like, love you. Right. And they express that, to me as well. And it's not like kind of a shucks type thing. It is like, no, there's a deep seated, like, been through thick and thin, love you. Know that they would, if they ever need, they would take the shirt off their back, give it to you, and they could count on the same for me. So there's that, right? Leaving the military can be very hard. You kind of step into an abyss, and you'll get the occasional call from someone to say, hey, are you like, is your head above water here? Are you surviving? I'd kind of get that, like, holy man, like you're still going, right? And you're like, yes, I'm still going. But it was very lonely. And then the operational stress, PTSD, can occasionally come and knock you on your butt, right?
And I want to say, some people don't get the head out of their water.
No, they don't.
I've seen you mourn for men that have served that took their life.
Yep.
So not everyone makes it out of that. No one comes out of the water once they step into the abyss. It's so hard.
Operation Feed. There was a couple people that keep saying, hey, you got to reach out to this group. They're doing great work. You're a veteran. You got to reach out. And I'm like, okay. And just busy. And at some point, Alessia's like, hey, you got to really like reach out. And there was a woman, a coworker, her husband was in it. And I was like, okay, I'll reach out. And I think it was as well, I saw Patrick Gordon, kind of like you, on Instagram, and he's doing some fitness thing. And again, it's just kind of, it's one of those things for guys who are like, I kind of need that. Yeah. And reached out through him, I think initially on Instagram, just appreciating his motivation. We had coffee. Yeah, as so often, some veterans, it's like an instant connection with like the language, the mannerisms. Where I'm going with this and the genius behind what he does is you'll see in through books and all that, like survival was one and all that, and elements of resilience, is a sense of purpose and mission is so important when people get out. And it's hard sometimes when you leave an organization that is so higher purpose, mission driven, and then you come into civilian side that we call it, or professional, and it just kind of isn't there for a lot of folks and a lot of organizations, or it's not as enticing perhaps to veterans. to have this, to get through sometimes the PTSD, operational stress, or just the trying to cross this delta of leaving this profession into the civilian world, is finding a purpose-driven organization. And Patrick, through Operation Feed, got that right. He runs a humanitarian organization, focused on humanitarian missions, but as well, so they, his organization, they feed kids here that are in need, provides meals to community groups and schools. It's phenomenal. I've seen, some of these people have tears and all that for what he and his team has done, and
that's the purpose.
That's the purpose. That's the mission, right? And then you see these veterans. There's some of these veterans that were in a tough spot. All of a sudden, like you see the sparkle back in the eye. They have the mission, and then they're within a group. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of veterans, I'll see veterans. They get out, and you especially see kind of special forces, army groups, is they want their kind of plot of land in the woods, go hunting, all this stuff. Well, unfortunately, a lot of times that's too isolating for especially guys that have been in a community group, that you need that community group, you need that support. So I'm not going to say it was easy. I still very much identify as that military guy, veteran. My life revolved around, a lot of my education was focused on military strategic studies, my books, international security, military history, all that stuff. Like it was a big identifier. And so leaving that, it was hard. I'm not going to say it was easy. And there's still sometimes, we'll have a hard day or whatnot, but it's.
And that purpose and mission, and the purpose and mission though is because is probably one of the reasons, the love for your country and wanting to have the purpose and vision for the country is what bringing James into politics is. I see it. It makes sense. Going back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast, who am I to stop him from that? Right. Who am I to keep him all to myself and not share with the country? There is a mission that he needs to fulfill.
100%. 100%. And it's that mission. Like you said, in the military, it's so mission focused. When you're giving orders, the very first thing that's mentioned is mission, and it's mentioned twice because of its importance, right? And then that's what it seems like kind of you're on now. Like your new mission is this kind of political sphere and serving your country in another way, which is very admirable. Very admirable to be kind of coming from it from another angle. And then also when you're talking about politicians, it's like who better to have than somebody who's had experience literally serving their country in a different way prior, and in the most kind of selfless way, right? And I think that's kind of like who you'd want to see for people that are representing the country. Kind of like, there's no angle of you coming at this in a selfless way. It's like, you've been there to serve the country and now you're looking to do it again. Totally.
Which is a great lead to one of my final questions, which is why you? So we know there's other candidates that are wanting to get nominated for the Saint John Kennebacasis riding. You're one of them, and some of them have great resumes. Yeah. So why should the Conservative Party, why should we choose James and not another candidate for this? This is not the time to be humble, because you love being humble.
Well, first off, I commend others that have decided to put their hat in the ring. It's not easy. Nomination process is pretty difficult. Won't talk about, there's other choices there. Why do I think I'm the best? Well, I can't, people will choose according to their heart what they believe in. For me, one, I think we face some tremendously difficult issues that are coming up within our country. I think one of the big things, and I think John Robertson National Post talked about it, is we might have an election shaped around international security. I'm a big international security guy. And there's one thing here. So one element that you'll find from me is I'm willing to be vulnerable. And what I mean by that is not everyone likes to go on social media. Trust me, I don't really enjoy going on social media, but I put myself out there. And I'm willing to die on some hills. I find a lot within the political arena are always like, I'm not sure I really want to go there. I'm not sure if I really want to do that. And unfortunately, I think we need more people that are willing, as I think Barry Weiss, who I really like there from the Free Press, talks about, is we need more people to die on some hills. To get out there and have some courage, and I'm willing to do it. I take a lot of barbs and attacks for it, as you are. I mean, you like call for some tax cuts, and then you get called horrible things in our political environment. But we need to have some courage. Why is this important? Why is the international security and having courage and willing to go out there? Why is it important to me? Well, one, the veteran piece, the military has been decimated. I don't know if Canada has been in a weaker or more vulnerable spot considering what is happening internationally. There is a new Cold War III, very much turning hot in terms of events within the Middle East, Ukraine, and then China being the big issue that is continuing to percolate and rise to the surface. All of this is happening as a new global or world order is occurring. A lot of Canadians would say, well, how does this affect me? Well, one, especially for New Brunswick and our area, there's a lot of families that I've come to know and all that, that have members of their family that are in the military, right? Veterans, yes, but also a lot of young people out there. There's a good, strong connection with the military, and those people should be equipped with the best equipment, with great leadership, and the resources to be put in when they're put into a theater that is dangerous, that they have a fighting chance. And I don't think we're there. I think we're actually pretty far from that place. And Canada, people will be involved. It is a common Canadian story that Canada gets involved, generally punches well above its weight in terms of global conflicts. And often we go into these conflicts very ill prepared and pay for it in blood. And I would love to break that cycle. Also, the best way for peace is a strong military. Deterrence is created through the show of strength. And we do not really present ourselves well in terms of some element of deterrence. Also, why do we need courage to speak out, to have someone that's willing to fight on this? Well, I don't share this often with Alessia. It does worry me sometimes within getting into the political realm is the vulnerability and safety of my family. And why do I say this? We have within our parliamentary system, we have, I think there's like 11 to 12 MPs that apparently are compromised, providing information or have provided information to countries that are hostile to our well-being, the foreign interference. We do have a very difficult issue with international crime, gangs. Canada is now an exporter of fentanyl. We used to be an importer. We're now exporting this deadly and toxic drug that's caused so much damage on our streets now to other places in the world. If we do not have the people that has the courage to call this out, to fight this, we're still waiting a number of years. The Trudeau Liberals have been aware of this issue, and they've tried to push it under the rug, hide it, or not address it. then how can you trust that within Parliament that you are safe or your family's safe? How can I trust that the person to the right or left of me, when we're talking about sensitive issues of national security, the safety on our street, that I could not be compromised, or that my family and children are not at risk? That's a concern for me. It's something I struggle with a lot, because you do need to be vulnerable. You do need to show that I have a family, we've got kids, we're normal people. But I do think Canada has a problem, a very big problem. And it's simple to say, axe the tax, build the homes and all that. But when you fundamentally have an issue that shows that your democratic system is compromised, that you have issues with potential gangs, international gangs, working with foreign governments and potentially pressuring or possibly assassinating dissidents within our country, you have something that goes to the very bedrock of our nation in terms of making sure that Canadians feel safe, that the democratic system isn't compromised, and that our national security is robust and secure. So that's one element of why I think I'm one of the right guys for the job, but
the right guy
for the job. But it does stress me out thinking about this mountain that's the climb, and how do we address that? Because I'm not sure that we're taking it seriously enough as a country. The other thing of what I've seen in terms of that vulnerability and whatnot, we need to get younger people involved. I think, or I believe, I'm probably the best right now. So what I've seen to speak to that, to address that. I've also, you've got to be able to fight, get your message out, and be active on social media. So people will see public opinion, whether people like it or not. Public opinion is built right now on social media. So you have to be out there. So far, I think I've been the only one that's been willing to be vulnerable, get myself out there, go beyond just a basic photo op, and put out the videos, talk about some of the things. I'd love to talk more about it, some of the issues, but it's hard in terms of the time span that people will give. It used to be that like at least your video couldn't be really more longer than a minute. I think it's now less than 30 to 15, between 15 and 30 seconds, or someone's not watching it. We talked about like you need the subtitles, you need this and that. Now I think you have between 3 to 6 seconds to get someone's attention, and they'll just continue to swipe. Yeah. But you need to play on those tools, and it will become all the harder as we go forward, because we haven't really talked about the big thing that's coming, and this is this alien intelligence and this godlike technology that will.
I thought you were actually saying the aliens.
No,
when you said the aliens, we haven't talked about the aliens.
No, and that's AI, robotics. It's coming. It's here. It's in its infancy. It's iterating so fast, becoming increasingly impressive, and it will further exacerbate political divisions, whatnot. To think that anyone has an answer, I would be suspicious of, but at least address that this is an issue. It's coming big, and and you put that in terms of a very weakened national security paradigm, it's all the more important. You come with that with all the different social divisions, even more important, right? Come into it as a country that seems to lack a belief in itself, even more important. Like, I don't want to be a doomsdayer, but it is something we have to address. And I think for a lot of people that are involved in politics, especially as we skew to a little bit of the older generation, I think it's kind of over the head. And I get it. Like I think I've been called an exennial. I'm kind of like that tail end of Generation X. But I know there is things that are happening politically through social media that I am completely unaware of, because the younger generation aren't even there, right? Like they're not, like I don't play with TikTok because I think there's a deep security issue there. So I'm not going to go there.
It's been banned in the US.
There is obviously there's a lot of politics. There's a political vibe that is occurring there that I'm probably not fully appraised of, right? And there's other tools there that are occurring that we're not fully engaged of, and I think I'm still at that element that is still somewhat aware and can play within that game, but it is rapidly changing.
So just to summarize why you are the guy.
Sorry, did I ramble?
No, I just want to keep going.
Good.
So you said, of course, your experience, this isn't, your experience serving for our country makes you the right candidate because of all the risks that we are facing now internationally and nationally. You talked about appealing to a demographic and bringing in the new voters. You talked about your vulnerability and desire to get out there in social media, in the community. And my favorite is this courage piece. Having the courage to speak out for what's wrong and to call people out, that to me should win you votes. Just really having the courage.
We would hope. I sense that a lot of times it's probably easier to just fly under the radar. I guess for me, I want to see I've always been taught of I'll fight for you if I know what you believe in, right? I'll fight and
tell me your why kind of deal, right?
Yeah, your why, right? What is the why here? And I find that a lot within the political sphere I'll fly below the radar, just kind of
make everyone happy.
Right.
Try not to say too much.
And that's what we were saying at the start of this, is how a lot of politicians operate in that way, right? Let me just not do as much stuff social media as possible because I could do something that angers people. But it's but at the same time, it's a detriment because nobody actually knows who you are. And I love the fact that you're willing to do this and put yourself out there, and that you're adapting the social media, even when you know that you don't like it, but it's a necessary tool. And it's that's what being a leader is adapting to the current circumstance and using the tools that are necessary to get the job done.
I mean, I've had some people kind of poo-poo or roll their eyes about social media. I think that Mr. Poilievre has been able to be as popular as he is and effective as he is because he has a young team around him that has made his social media excellent. Right, and above the others. And I think that's one of the things of why the Conservatives are ahead.
That's what the Conservatives need.
Yes, they need that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so my last question, I don't know if you have anything else, but my last question for you is about failure. Everyone likes to win, and failure is a part of life. And going into politics, that is a chance. There is a chance you may not get the nomination. There is a chance that even if you get nominated, you don't get elected. So on a personal level, James, how do you plan on dealing with failure? if you get to that?
Well, I've been good in terms of occasionally taking a shot and dusting myself off and going, well, that sucked. All right, carry back on. I'd like to think that through my life, I've been pretty resilient. I think that's a character trait, a positive character trait for me. If this doesn't go, and I'm fully prepared for that, it took me 2 tries to make JTF2, and the first time, it sucked not getting it. So used to that. I would like to have a little bit of a break before, I'd like to read, dive into just enjoy some good books. Just a little bit of peace, a little bit more time in the garden. And then from there, dust myself off, get back up, and support, the Conservative Party. I've already pinged one person to say, hey, I can help you with your social media and help you do this and that, if
still be involved.
I'd still be involved, of course, right? It's I'd like to think it's a team-based effort, and I'd like to support the team going forward. Beyond that, all I ask is I just have a little bit of a break after initially, just to kind of.
Okay, so are you saying that the list of things that we need you for in the House that is on hold because of the campaign,
the honey-do list,
cannot be pulled out right away?
Just give me a day. Just give me a day or two.
One day.
But actually, a lot of the honey-do list, is stuff that I actually really want to do.
I don't like when you say honey-do.
The honeydew.
Do you get what he's saying?
Everybody knows what he's talking about. Everybody knows what he's talking about.
No, too simple of a term. Alessia is right. It's things that we want to do together.
It's not the wife's list, is it?
No. Actually, I think a lot of it's my own list.
It's both. It's both. It's an extensive list.
It's just good to have a list. You have to put this stuff down on a list, or else it'll never get done.
I'd actually just, it'd be nice to have a little bit of calm and quiet for a little bit.
I agree.
Well, so then are we going to land the plane now then?
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, so I know the last question we talked about was failure, so I hope that's not the case here, because James and Alessia, this is our first time meeting, but this has been an absolute pleasure to have both you two here today talking so candidly and so openly about your lives in such a personal way, and kind of opening up that behind the cover look to see who are you guys really, and that's incredible. And I mean, just everything that we talked about today. So I just want to thank you both very much for being here.
Thanks, Trudeau.
And I'm happy that I can give a platform to be able to do this. And it's so interesting that we are at a time where kind of this is the way to kind of get your message out there. And a lot of people aren't willing to do this. And the fact that you are willing to come on here and talk so vulnerably is, I think, should be a major statement to a lot of people that are looking to find good leadership. So
thank you again.
With that being said, thank you guys very much. And till next time.